The classic D4. Is she still worth building now in the game, especially if you're a newer player or maybe you've restarted the game? I mean, obviously, I've always admitted my bias towards the Klingons, so surely I'm not going to sit here and say we don't use our D4s. We don't like them, right? Well, I'm going to discuss, even though it's beautiful coming out of the hangar, I think it's one of the best animations they ever added in for these ships. I'm going to discuss the value of the D4, whether it's good, not good, etc., and then let you decide for yourself as we update some of the content as this game has progressed. D4, well, it needs the same thing. Let's go.
Fancy intro music, yeah! Woohoo!
So let's talk about the D4. I mean, depending on where you are at in the game, the D4 is either just something that you build to scrap or it's something that you actually might consider using. If you are at level 34, this is one of the epic ships that you immediately get confronted with. And I want to go ahead and say outright and up in the front, I actually like the D4 as a ship. I have no problem with it. In fact, let me show you a normal crew run. And let's just take, for example, this one right here. A standard Armada crew that you would maybe run on a D4. I mean, technically you'd run this on any ship. Thankfully, not much has changed in that regard in the past couple years. If you haven't unlocked these, don't worry. We'll talk about crewing in a bit. The big thing comes down to the cost of the D4 and upgrading it and whether or not that is valuable to you as a player. So to put the cost on the screen here, the raw cost of the D4, you're going to need 48,000 uncommon crystal to max it out, and then another 15,000 raw gas. Uncommon gas, but these are the raw numbers. So obviously your research, everything will lower this down just a little bit, and that obviously helps out. And we like having lower price points in this game, cheaper price points. And the epics are certainly easier now for free to play to max than they were in the past, but we have a lot of players who are free to play max D4s, Enterprises, and Augurs. But the question comes, is it worth it? Like, do you have value in the D4 compared to, say, something like the Enterprise or the Augur, which generally are the more popular choice? And is there a reason for that? Let me come out the gate and say right now that in terms of combatability, the D4 is absolutely a good ship in the game. The drawbacks come to economy decisions and whether or not it's investing in the D4 is a wise decision for you long term. I actually would love to know how many players that are, say, on one of our newer or maybe a server that's only a couple years old, did you go for the D4 and why? Let me know in the comment section down below. I think the D4 is a good ship. There's nothing about it schematically, technical wise, that is bad. It creates good damage per round. It is fast as an interceptor, one of the fastest ships that you have access to in G3. Has a lot of perks there. And as you see coming out of the gate, has equal or similar power to what you would from another ship like an Enterprise and a Augur. Now, it does have the weakest ship ability of the three, and that should be noted. That's never changed. It's always had the weakest ship ability of the three. You can see my D4 Enterprise and Augurs right here. See, it's pretty similarly powered-ish. That's always been the case. They've always had the weaker of the ability, with the Enterprise having the Forever Shield and with the Augur having the Burning ability, which is tremendously useful, especially for Armadas. But you've still always had a great fast PvP ship here. Let's talk about where the drawbacks actually kick in for the D4. It's not really combat, because if you want to hit hostiles, throw Pike Moreau Chin on it and you'll go grind whatever you want. Throw Pike Moreau Talon on it and go grind heavy traders with it in Sol, Kronos, or Romulus, so that you can get blueprints for 4-star ships and more reputation. It will do all of those jobs fine. What really comes down to is the economy choice for what you want to do. And for example, you have things that cost a lot of uncommon crystal. For example, all 3 of your 3-star faction miners. Now, this does change later in the game, which is greatly appreciated, Scopely, that the G4, G5, etc. miners no longer all take the same type, but in G3 they do. So every single one of them, even the Federation one, takes mostly crystal. You see, taking 31,000, which is a little more than half of what the D4 itself needs, yet you're going to need miners. And I'm not just saying that as a pirate who wants to OPC hunt you. Truthfully, you do have to mine. You have your dailies that you have to do. You want to do your refineries. So that is quite important. And yet that's not the only reasons. You've also reached a point in the game where the Antares is not the only thing that's going to want 3-star from you in the 30s. You have 2 specialty ships up on the screen now, the Defiant and the Talios, that both want uncommons. Now, truthfully, neither of these take a lot. So we can't really look at the uncommon crystal and go, hey, absolutely a reason to skip the D4. And you clearly can only max these out at tier 3 at level 39, and I included that at level 35 are going to be tier 1. The D4 is going to be superior. And I want to make sure that is known. I'm not trying to say that these two ships immediately replace the D4 at level 35, but they will long term. Like, as in, if you need an interceptor to use, you're going to use this a lot, and I mean a lot longer, than you're going to use this. So it's more about the longevity of a ship. The D4 will quickly get phased out in the 40s, whereas even the Enterprise and Augur have a little bit more longevity, one, due to their abilities, with the ability of the D4 being, as long as the opponent has hull breach, it increases his weapon damage by a very tiny percentage in today's game, starting at 1% and then escalating. But even with the escalation, if you were to say max it out, you're not getting very good quality for that escalation. And this goes back to the power creep problem that we've talked about a lot ad nauseum on this channel. As the game has grown, more things have gotten added to it, and the ship ability is something that has never changed. It maxes out as a 25% bonus. How pitiful is that? Well, go to your refit screen real quick, hit your unlock button, go over to your projectiles, and you have a projectile that gives you that bonus in terms of a weapons damage bonus. Now, the difference is the D4's ability is cumulative, but the point I'm making that in today's game, that just doesn't have any value. So it essentially has a ship ability that is irrelevant, whereas the Enterprise still has value with the Forever Shields. And I'm sure everybody in the Discord will agree, because it's still the favorite ship because it's the Enterprise, but also has a great ability. The Augur also has an ability that persists, because when it gets a damage bonus, it's over 100% and it's cumulative. And you have multiple officers that can all give you that burning, whether it be Neelix in a hostile fight, Nero, Giorgio, etc. Hull breach, sure, you have opportunities, you just don't have big bonuses. We'll say I love the firing pattern of the D4. In fact, the entire D series, D3, D4, and technically Hector, have got amazing firing patterns that are really easy to work with about any crew set. But when it comes to the actual value they provide you in the game, they're not giving you as much as they used to, and that's specifically with this ship here. It just doesn't have as much longevity. It's not a bad choice to go after it and use it, because like I said, you can put it on a variety of boats and find success. So here is that crew that we talked about for running, that Cheez-It crew that we just referred to. But we swap this out and go to our Enterprise real quick, and we put in our really classic Pipe Moreau chin loadout for our normal hostile grinding. You can do that with a maxed Enterprise. You can also just as easily do this with the D4. The crewing in the 30s is effective. It's more about, are you getting value for your ship choice long term? Now, if you're like me, you just love the Klingons, just constant Klingon memorabilia sitting around my desk, there's nothing wrong at all with getting the D4. Even though I don't believe the Kelvin movie Klingon ships were exactly beautiful, that is something that you can have here. And it will max out similar power and do similar damage to the Augur and the Enterprise. So if you are at level 34 making that decision, you will get an effective ship. The real question comes down to, is it worth it for you long term? Because like I said, the Talios will last you well into the 50s. And as the 40s appear, it will take over as your primary interceptor, being better, faster, and stronger than the D4, as well as being better, stronger, and faster. Did I emphasize that enough? The D4, again, not a bad ship, but when you talk about longevity, what still matters? The Enterprise has more because of a special ship ability. The Augur has more because of a special ship ability. And you don't have that with the D4, combining with the drawback of its economy taking the same things that you need for things like miners, special ships, etc. So again, it's not a bad choice. If you're out there going, should I get the D4? If you want it, just simply know the potential pitfalls of this, because crewing's the same in the 30s. One thing that's really nice about the 30s, want to hit hostiles? Pipe Moreau chin. Want to go grind capital heavy systems? Pipe Moreau Talon. Want to do an armada? 5 Con Gorkon, or 5-6 Con, or 5-6 Gorkon. I mean, a slew of options that are all universally translated no matter what ship you're on. The only thing with the D4 is it just doesn't last as long in terms of effectiveness unless you just want it to. Because you make a choice where if you're using a D4 at level 41, you're choosing to do that. You don't really need to, but you want it because you love it. And you know what? I respect that. But in today's game, in 2024, the D4 has lost a lot of its viability. getting outclassed by interceptors in the 40s and taking away some of its longevity, but it can be a very good boat for you for a good 5 levels, 6 levels, maybe 7, whereas a lot of ships in the game now last beyond that. But all I need to do is tell you how it works. Again, in terms of firing pattern, things like that, it is a great ship. Still love it. I actually love testing with it because you have a predictable firing pattern that you can use with all your ships. But for me, at this point, simply there to be scrapped, built, and then never seen from again. But if you're a level 34 player, something to consider as you make your decisions, especially if you're heading up to that way. If you like us doing these content updates, feel free to comment down in the comment section below. Love doing a lot of these as we need to update them as crews have changed. Thankfully, not much has changed with the D4 Enterprise, but the logic of getting them absolutely has. Live long and plunder. Stay safe with the Space Cowboys. Deuces, that's me. Catch you on the next Star Trek Fleet Command video, which is every day.
An even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.